What is up, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back, or welcome to the 31st episode of the Didn't Ask podcast. How's everybody doing? I hope you had a good weekend. I mean, kinda did. It was a relaxed weekend for me. I was feeling way too tired and basically couldn't get off the couch. So, watch some UFC, watch some Formula One, watch some wrestling. It's basically every weekend for me. So that was fun, even though, again, I was a bit tired. I was thinking about going to see Eliza Schlesinger because she was performing in Amsterdam, but in the end decided not to go because, again, wasn't feeling very well, and I am kind of scared of big crowds still. I know we have the COVID thing pretty much under control right now, knock on wood. But still, big crowds kind of scare me, and the whole show was sold out. So I was just like, well, maybe it's not the right time for me to go. So I sadly didn't go see Eliza. I hope she comes back soon so I can still see her live, but for now, the Netflix specials will have to do. Well, that's enough about me. Let's jump into the first question of the AskReddit subreddit, coming from user Spiral Gremlin, and they ask, what are your immediate thoughts when you hear a guy refer to himself as an alpha male? I think of the clip of FouseyTube, where he goes, "You're beta as fuck! You're beta as fuck!" That's what I really think about when somebody screams that they're an alpha. Like, why? Why do you have to say you're an alpha? Like, what's the point? It seems like a very much like a beta thing to say, to do. Because you're so insecure about yourself that you have to pronounce that you're an alpha. At that point, you're not an alpha anymore. And coming back to the Eliza thing that I just talked about, and she has a saying where she goes, if somebody says they're an alpha, they are not the alpha, they're a beta. And going further on that, if a lion walks up to you and says they're a lion, like, a lion doesn't have to say that they're a lion. You can see that they're a lion. You can feel that they're a lion. They have a certain stature. They have a certain je ne sais quoi. The something. The something. You can see that it's a lion. A lion doesn't have to tell you they're a lion, because we can see that they're a lion. If an alpha male has to tell you they're an alpha male, they're not an alpha male. Because if you are an alpha male, you would have been secure in yourself and not begging on the fact that you have to call yourself an alpha male. So it's a pretty short answer to your question, Spiral Gremlin. What are your immediate thoughts when you hear a guy refer to himself as an alpha male? And my answer would be, they're beta as fuck. Because if you really need to hang on the fact that you say that you're an alpha male, you are definitely not an alpha male. Because an alpha male would be confident in themselves enough to know that they're an alpha and don't have to fucking notify anybody that walks past. Thank you for your question, Spiral Gremlin. Moving on to the second question of the AskReddit subreddit for today, and this one coming from Bynusen94, and they ask, do you believe abortion should be legal? Why or why not? And I think I have touched on this point a little bit in the past, but not a full question, so I'm gonna answer it here. And for me, what stupid question is this? Of course abortion should be legal. Like, I feel like this, of course, is a question that rolls out of the situation that's happening in Texas right now, where they have banned abortions after 6 weeks, I believe, from the top of my head. And it causes a lot of controversy to say that women should be able to have abortions. Because, like, the fact is, like, this comes from a very conservative side where people are religious and therefore you're killing a child and yada yada yada. But to me, I feel like that's not necessarily true. I mean, even believers kill animals all the time. Like, what is the difference between? Again, I'm not saying that there is a that an animal and a baby are the same, but it's just like, well, you kill a cow the to eat the meat. So what is that cow not alive? And does that cow not have a soul? Because that's the thing that you're arguing with a baby that's not even able to walk or do anything really. And 6 weeks, like that cutoff point, that is such a short period of time, because especially like some women have very irregular periods, so they can have like a deviation of a couple weeks. So think of that, where you just had your period and then you have like a 4 week period, like a 4 week time, and you not have your period, and then because it's irregular, then 3 weeks later, you think like, oh man, I still haven't had my period, and then you're pregnant, and it turns out, hey, you're 6 weeks pregnant, so you now cannot have an abortion. That seems like a weird thing to me. Like, of course, there should be rules and regulations to abortion. Like, oh, I don't know what the I think you can abort in the first trimester. I think from the top of my head, I believe that that is basically like the norm. And then I believe there is a cutoff point at like 20 weeks or something like that, where it's like after that becomes dangerous. But again, correct me if I'm wrong. I am not fully sure about that. But personally, yeah, I feel like people should have the option to, do abortion, and they should be accommodated in that, because similar to drugs, is that the better you get a grip on the situation, the safer it is going to be. Because now what you're doing is, when you criminalize abortion, or like you make it illegal to do, you basically put the hands of these women and the health of them into people's hands that probably shouldn't have the life of the women in their hands. Because the thing is, by making abortion illegal, and by making basically any medical procedure illegal, you're gonna have people that's gonna do this out of their goddamn basement or out of their goddamn garage, and it's just gonna be really bad for public health, and it's gonna just be really bad for people altogether. So personally, yeah, I think that abortion should be legal. And again, I'm not saying that this is a lawless land or some shit. There should be legals and regulations, but more so to protect the women that are having these abortions, and not necessarily the babies. Because again, we discard a lot of things in our society, and I don't feel like there is a real good argument that you can make why abortion shouldn't be legal, because most things that we do involve killing animals and shit like that. So, and again, the thing for abortion is like, women shouldn't be able to do abortions. Like, why? What's the point? Okay, you're killing a life. I can understand that. But I feel like there are many more arguments that you can make for a woman to commit abortion or have an abortion. Like, she's not ready for it. She got raped. This is not the right person. She doesn't have the financial means. She doesn't have. She's in a rough situation in her life. You can go on and on and on, and you can say like, oh, there are solutions to that, and you might regret this. And it's like, yeah, but when you have a kid and you're stuck, I don't know. It's saying you're stuck with a kid sounds really bad, but for the situation, I'm gonna use that. If the woman has the child, and anything can go wrong as well in a pregnancy. A pregnancy are majestic things. Like, it's really hard to give birth. It's really hard to get pregnant to begin with, and then it's really hard to give birth and to reach that point of giving birth. So getting rid of that option of abortion is just really harmful for the whole situation. And again, you're killing a baby, quote unquote, that has no cognitive functions and looks like a goddamn alien to begin with at that point. But I feel like the repercussions for the woman are far, far, far more important than the rights of the baby that isn't a baby. And again, this is what I actually wanted to say. There should be rules and regulations. I feel like the Netherlands have the rules and regulations pretty much on point because I believe, like I said, you can do an abortion up to like throughout the whole first trimester, and then with some exceptions you can have it later at, I believe, 20 weeks. But of course 20 weeks, that is pretty far along, and at that point you probably have to give birth and shit like that. It's a whole rigmarole. I don't know what the full details are. But coming back to the question asked by user by Newson94, do you believe abortion should be legal? Why or why not? And my answer to be, of course, abortion should be legal. First off, it takes away the illegal medical ring that you're creating and having people go outside the country lines or county lines in the US to get an abortion. So health and safety are top priority. I feel like the argument for having or keeping the baby are far outweighed by the reasons why you get rid of the baby. And again, we pretend like having an abortion is fun and people do it every week or some shit. But it is a drastic medical procedure, so I don't think that anybody would willy-nilly get an abortion because they don't. So thank you for your question by Newson94. Going to the third question of today, asked by user Willow John, and they ask, what are your thoughts about making it a crime in the US for elected officials to deliberately sow misinformation? I know that it says USA, but I feel like we can make this question worldwide because, yeah, officials and politicians should be held accountable for spreading misinformation. But the issue that you're running into is that for most part, these officials probably don't even know that they're spreading misinformation. Because like many people that get their information from Facebook, they probably read it somewhere and it may be even a reputable site, but sources are very important and not every source is weighed equally, I would say. So yeah, it's really hard to put like a stamp on this because again, the question is relatively simple. What are your thoughts about making it a crime in the USA for elected officials to deliberately sow misinformation? The question itself is fairly simple. I personally think, yeah, it should be a crime for you to sow misinformation, but then again, it's really hard to pinpoint when information is right and when information is wrong, especially nowadays when everybody has a blog, everybody has a phone, and everybody can do whatever the fuck. And through the power of the internet, you can amplify your voice by 1,000,000%. And that results in a single person having more power than, an elected official, and therefore things seep through. And even if they, again, have misinformation, they probably don't know if that information is misinformation or wrong. And then again, you can say like, oh, they need to do their research better. It's like, yeah, they probably should, but still, it's really hard to prove that something is misinformation and you didn't know, what the real answer was. But yeah, if somebody deliberately does it, then yeah, they should be able to get punished in some way. We have this issue right now in the Netherlands where we have so many fucking weird things going on, and politicians are biting the dust left and right because they have been lying to the public. They have withheld information, so not even spread misinformation, but just withheld it. And people are not happy about it. and they should be fired and they should have some sort of punishment. But again, they're politicians, so they can do whatever the fuck they want and nobody gives a shit, or at least they don't give a shit, because it's a weird circle jerk, the politics, where as a politician you can do whatever the fuck you want because other politicians are not going to say anything because they are politicians too and they know that it can cost their head. So you reach this weird point where it's just like, oh, everybody does bad shit and nobody does anything about it because the public can't really do much, and the politicians themselves don't do anything because they're basically all friends in some way, shape, or form, even though there might be an opposite side of the spectrum, but there is still some involvement and connection between all of them. They're acquaintances, you know what I mean? They're peers. So they aren't going really hard against each other because they could be in the same position, and if you save person A might save you. And that's a weird, situation. It's a fucking reality show at this point. So, Willow, John, what are your thoughts about making it a crime in the USA for elected officials to deliberately sow misinformation? And again, and yes, it should be a crime if you deliberately sow misinformation. But then again, it's really hard to pinpoint if they deliberately did it or that they, had misinformation reported to them and therefore spread that. It's a hard situation, but thank you for your question, Willow John. Moving on to the fourth question of the Ask Reddit subreddit for today, and this one coming from user boss31112. And they ask, what normal activities seem suspicious if done at 3 a.m.? And an answer would be a forest hike. Because if you normally walk through the forest, it could be like chill out, you know what I mean? Breathing in nature, fresh air, and all that. But if you do it at 3 a.m., it seems kind of weird. Because why the fuck would you do it at that point? There's no sun. It's probably relatively cold. Are you hiding a body somewhere? Did you hide a body? Are you hunting something? It's a bit suspicious. Next to that, I would also say building a pool. Because if you're building a pool or something similar, you'll probably dig in the ground. And then it's just like, are you building a grave in the backyard? Are you burying a dead body, sir? Miss? Mrs.? Mister? You know what I'm saying? There are some weird things. And I see that first comment, and this one is pretty fucking good. This one coming from small dash red 9284 or small read 9284, I don't know. But they say, I had a neighbor who would use power tools, mostly saws, late at night. My family would joke that he was cutting up bodies again. And that is indeed a very good one. Like, what the fuck are you doing with a saw in the middle of the fucking night? Are you carving bodies in there, sir? Please tell me. Thank you for your question, boss31112. And moving on to the final question of the Ask Reddit subreddit. This one coming from Gilly Island 91. And they ask, what, besides ketchup, do you dip your French fries in? And me, I don't use ketchup. I think ketchup is disgusting. I don't want to deal with ketchup. I just don't like tomatoes to begin with. Tomatoes? I don't know. Don't like ketchup to begin with. No, ketchup you can fucking bun off. You can throw it at the bottom of the fucking ocean, and I will not miss it. That being said, I'm European. I'm from the Netherlands. Very European. We use mayonnaise for a lot of things, but dipping French fries is certainly one of them. So that would be one of my answers. But dipping the French fry or string fry, a shoelace fry, whatever you want to call it, it depends on what meal I'm having. Because if I'm at McDonald's, I for sure order some chicken nuggets and then you get a sauce with that. Personally, my sauce of choice is the sweet and sour sauce. And the sweet and sour sauce goes very well with the salty fries or chips, depending on if you're living in the UK or not. So I really like that, dipping them in sweet and sour sauce. It's just perfect. It tastes nice. It's just like doing that. So that would probably be my answer, besides, of course, mayonnaise, because mayonnaise is such a staple here in Europe. And, if you go to Belgium or whatever, you get some Belgian fries. You, of course, have to put a big dollop of mayonnaise on that, because otherwise it wouldn't be the same. So thank you, Gilly Island 91, for your question. And finally, we move on to the Am I the Asshole subreddit for today. And this one coming from user concerned mom05. And they ask, would I be the asshole if I show my daughter's teacher's Twitch stream to the school administration? Juicy. My daughter is in high school. Last year, she had a younger science teacher, a woman in her mid 20s, who hadn't been teaching very long. About halfway through the year, my daughter and her friends found out this teacher was streaming on Twitch. My daughter doesn't know who found the teacher's Twitch stream first, but her and her friends started watching and clipping everything the teacher did and saved it on their phones. I just recently discovered these videos when I grounded my daughter from her phone, and I am shocked to say the least. First of all, the teacher is streaming as some kind of weird big boobed anime character. She's extremely inappropriate, using foul language and also making sexual comments, super casually on stream. There are probably 50 different clips I found in my daughter's Snapchat of her teacher doing this. I wasn't sure what any of this was at first, and when I asked my daughter about why she had such weird videos saved, she said, "Mom, we're pretty sure that's Mrs. XXXX. She had the same voice and everything." The particular teacher left the school at the start of last year, but I found out quickly which school she moved to with a Google search. I want to email administration for her new school and let them know the kind of inappropriate activities this teacher engages in outside of school. I reached out to the parents of some of the other kids in my daughter's group chat. Most of them are telling me to leave it alone and let this teacher live her life, but there is one that's on the fence and kind of agrees with my viewpoint here. My daughter and her friends swear the teacher never invited any students to watch her stream and was actually trying to keep it a secret, and had a nervous breakdown last year about them harassing her online, and it's why she went and found a new job this year. I know teachers are allowed to have lives and hobbies outside of work, but I just think this is way too inappropriate to go unpunished. She can't just run away from her poor and unprofessional behavior. If she's going to be part of this profession, she should be more mindful of the content she puts on the internet. And I honestly don't think other parents would be pleased to know that their kids have a teacher that shouts loudly on the internet about which anime character she wants to toss her salad. Would I be the asshole if I show her new school administration her Twitch account? So, well, that was a pretty long story, but it gives us all the context we need. And to answer your question very quickly, concerned mom of 5, yes, you would be the asshole. Because first off, this teacher is not even the teacher of your kid anymore. So there's very little you can do there. If this teacher was the teacher of the kid still, then I could see that you could make like an comment about it. But then again, this teacher is a normal person too, and I don't feel like we should hold the teacher accountable for certain things that they do. But if this person is just doing this in her off time because she likes it and she enjoys it, who are you to stop that? If this teacher is just doing this outside of school and she's teaching your kid science for all fucking I care, because that's what she is. She's a science teacher. If she teaches the kids science and doesn't attract any attention for her Twitch stream through them kids, then I don't really see that there is as an issue. Fuck, for all care, a teacher goes to a goddamn orgy. I don't fucking care. As long as these teachers teach the kids what they need to know, I personally feel like that is fine. And that should be all in this situation. The fact that your daughter and her friends harassed the teacher is a bigger issue in this situation. So I think, concerned mom 05, that you should talk to your daughter and not to the administration of the school, because it sounds like your daughter is a bit of a bitch and she is just harassing her teacher. While again, saying pretty sure, because the teacher is playing a VTuber, so you don't even see her face. You only hear her voice, and people have similar voice. That's just a thing. But seemingly, this is the teacher. But again, this teacher does basically everything in her power to not be associated with this Twitch stream, because she's not showing her face. She isn't touting this Twitch stream in her classes. So why are you going to the other school to complain about this teacher that is not even the teacher of your kid about what she's doing in her off time? Again, teachers have a life too. They're people. Again, for all I care, they go to fucking sex orgies and fucking fuck everybody there. I don't care. As long as the teacher is a good teacher and kids feel safe with that teacher, I don't think there's any problem in this situation. So, going back to the question, concerned mom 05, would I be the asshole if I show my daughter's teacher's Twitch stream to the school administration? Yes, you would be. Don't do it. I think you're blowing this shit out of proportion. This teacher is doing everything in her power to enjoy what she's doing, which is Twitch streaming, but not make it interfere with her day-to-day life as a teacher, because again, she is not showing her face and she is not promoting that Twitch stream to the children. And again, your daughter is in high school. She probably has seen way worse things on the internet than this teacher. So please leave the teacher alone and teach your daughter a lesson about not harassing people online, because this is not fun. This is not a joke. This teacher is just enjoying herself on the internet. Again, with not even her face shown, so we technically don't even know that it is the teacher. So maybe you should look at your kids a little closer and make sure that they don't harass people, because that's not the way to go. So, concerned mom, please leave this teacher alone and keep an eye out on your daughter, because she sounds like a bitch. And that is it for the Didn't Ask podcast for today. Thank you for joining me for episode 31. If you have not listened to the previous episodes of this podcast, you can find those at anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. That link will be in the show description. If you go to that link, you will also be able to find a button. If you press that, you can ask me a personal question yourself. I can play that message on the podcast. So if you don't want your voice to be heard on the podcast and you want it to be more anonymous, please say that somewhere in the message, preferably up front, because otherwise I might forget it. And that way I can just read your question out myself so that your voice doesn't have to be heard by the masses. I will be back next week. And if you want to know what I'm doing in between the podcast, you can go to track.tv, and that link will be in the show description as well. On track.tv, you can find my account, and over there you can see every TV show and movie that I'm watching at the time. And as well, fun to know, it has a live scrubbler, as they call it, which basically shows all the shows that I'm watching as I'm watching it. It depends on the website, so it probably doesn't show all of them, but it shows a lot of them, so keep an eye out on that. That is going to be all for me for this week. I hope you had a good time. I will be back next week, and I'll see you then. Enjoy your week, and goodbye.